What's up, guys? He's coming, everyone. We got held up with the babies. Yep. All right. Well, it's pretty much exactly what happened. So, sorry, here we are. I wasn't as late as I thought it was going to be, so that's a plus. Uh, let's go back a little bit. Scottish Wild, man. Good to see you. Rob S., what's up, bro? It actually feels weird that, I mean, even though we went out Friday, it feels weird that we didn't go out this morning. Like, I felt like, I think we missed the Monday before that because of me, so it's been a little weird. I feel like off kilter, as they say. Montauk Strange is here. DHP is here. Larry, what's up, bro? Good to see you. All right. I'm not gonna sit here and I'm whatever. I'm not gonna make you guys wait. I'm just gonna pull them up. So we talked yesterday. Uh, here is Brian.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And here is DHP. There we go.
What's going on, boys? Good to see you.
How's it going?
All right, let me turn up my volume.
Very well.
Can't hear you guys for shit. You hear me?
I can
Sounds
hear you.
good.
Okay. It's really low. I don't know why. It did this to me last time too, so it's no big deal. Okay. So how you guys doing?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm all right.
Fantastic.
Excited.
All right.
We braved the storm, right? I mean, this was
Yeah.
a hurricane at one point, and I believe it got downgraded just before it touched Long Island area, or just coming over it became a tropical storm. So it was quite a rainy event over on this side. What about you guys? How did you fare out there on Long Island?
We did good. I actually just unpacked all my camping gear and then packed it back up just in case we had to evacuate, and
hmm
didn't get anything, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's tough where you are because it's a flood area, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
close. It's so close to the water. I'm inland a little bit, so it wasn't that bad. I'm like 5 miles from the shore, so it's not terrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's good. That's
Still
good.
get the wind. Power loss was the biggest. Didn't want to lose power no matter what.
But you're on the south shore too. You're on the south shore, so that's like where shit kind of, you know what I mean? That's kind of
Yeah.
where like it comes in and like attacks, you know?
Yeah, it comes up through the bay and just comes up to our doorstep usually. So it goes past
Yeah.
that, then I start wanting to get out of there.
That campgrounds, I thought the campgrounds we were at was the ones, but I think it was a different one nearby. But we actually got evacuated out of there once, and it
Wow.
was miserable, man. Like it was like you know that one road out. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when you're out east, like that one road out, and like that's it. There's like DHP's seen it now too. It's like one lane in, one lane out,
Yep.
Mhm.
and when there's people on it,
You're
it
stuck.
sucks. Like so.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
trapped
like
there.
Sarah said, it was just rain here, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
just some
thing.
rain in Smithtown.
Nice.
Kai Salas, what's up? Oscar, what's up, brother? See palm trees in Long Island. You done fucked up.
No, but there are cactus out there. Technically, there's areas considered to be desert out there
True.
in Long Island, which is something I learned and didn't
It was,
know going
I
out
know.
there.
I
That's
try
cool.
to talk about it all the time. I'm there's so much shit here. It's weird. Like, I remember we were looking at that purple sand over in Orient Point, and you were like, "Is this cactus?" Like, you're like, "Are these cactus?"
Yeah,
I'm like,
you're
"Yeah."
looking at this. Like, wait a minute, I was in California. Yeah, that makes sense. But here in Long Island, what the hell are there cactus doing around here? I mean, obviously somebody had to bring them over, and they're possibly some sort of invasive species in that particular environment. But it was just a trip to see it nonetheless, right on the beach there. I'm like,
Yeah, those
Yeah.
purple pears.
I didn't expect it there either. I mean,
Yeah, certain time of the year they get those little thorns. You don't even see them. You stick your hand on it, and you got like thousands of little tiny prickers from those things.
oh, fantastic.
But yeah, I think they're natural here. I'm not sure though. We got the pine deserts, so technically a desert, like you said, and you experience that out there. So
Oh yeah, and
yeah,
it felt like a desert out there too. I mean,
yeah,
the way the sun bakes the sand, even the smell, everything was so
cooking.
dry. You know what I mean? It definitely felt like what you'd consider a desert to be it, and yet we were in
Absolutely.
Long Island.
Right.
This is what I was laughing at a minute ago. You see palm trees in Long Island, you know, you know, fucked up.
Yes, indeed.
But
Um,
we had quite the adventure. We were out there in Long Island and Montauk specifically, in and around Montauk, really. And each of us, I think, had certain experiences that we had shared, whether it was within the walks that we did with Mike squatching, or just riding in the car, entering a certain space. These were some really interesting experiences. What did you guys take away? One of the biggest things that you take away from being out there in the woods for 4 days and spending a lot of time with the people that you did?
Well, for me, that was every time it's a learning experience, pretty much. I'm picking up new stuff every time because it's, even though I've stared at these woods my whole life, looking at it in a different way, like I said, after even our first time out with Mike, he pointed out so many things, and now it just got me thinking, you can't look at things the same. So I'm driving down the road all the time now, looking at things, and there's a break, like everywhere I go now. So, yeah, it's I'm learning stuff every time. So, but there's some cool stuff on the videos didn't even really get to check out fully yet. So
True.
I'm sure we'll find more.
What
Yeah.
about you, Mike?
I mean, I was only there like for the first night, and I had to go, and somewhat of my, the day two, what would have been day two, is I had to get my injections for my, I have a traumatic brain injury from combat. I get injections once a month in my occipital nerves, and I was feeling the pressure because like I got pushed back to 6 weeks from 4 weeks every treatment, so it was hard on me in that aspect. So that was kind of literally weighing on me quite a bit. But it was a blast to get, you know, to get out there. Once we started going to Hero, like things like it was like exciting, you know what I mean? Like it was so cool. Like we were like in a little convoy, you know what I mean? Like you were in this, you and Dale were in the car, and then I was, DHP, and like he's like sightseeing, you know what I mean? It's funny to see. I've never really been in the car with somebody who's sightseeing on Long Island, you know what I mean? Like at least on the way there. Usually I'm like just going with like, my mother or Sarah or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Or like my buddy Mike, I took one time, and we went mountain biking at Camp Hero. But like it was like, you're like, look at this, and you're like reading all these like historical facts as we're driving by on these like monuments and signs and shit. I'm like, damn, really? Like,
yeah, we were like, look at this. We were getting your head was probably spinning, but we wanted to point out as much as we could.
Yeah,
so,
it was great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you guys did just that. I mean, both of you at separate times, sometimes together, you're pointing out certain things and talking about the history. Brian here is an absolute historian when it comes to Montauk, whether he wants to consider himself one or not, he is. In way of what, not necessarily just with the project and so forth, but the actual history of the town, the different people that have come through, perhaps some of the governments that were, around in certain periods. This guy will be able to tell you a lot of things. But then conversely, Mike was also doing a great job showing me around Montauk and talking about some of the same things that Brian was. But the beautiful thing was neither of them were repeating each other. So it was like hearing two different versions here that fit together, part of the same history at these locations that we visited.
Well, even for me, like I don't know anything about Camp Hero, really. You know what I mean? Like I'm base knowledge. You know what I mean? When we got back, people were like, oh, like tell me about Junior, and I'm like, I don't really even know. You know what I mean? Like I only know, like, I was listening to you guys and like picking up on stuff. Like, but that's a lot of what I do, and you guys know that I go out with nothing. I go out with nothing in the tank, so that whatever I take in is like, I love when it matches up with stuff, especially. And
that's an advantage.
yeah, and it works for me. Like a lot of people like to know where they're going, what they're doing. Like I like to go blank slated and just take in what's there, and I mean, sometimes it's, so sometimes I get sucked dry, and that was one of those days, man. Like I was when we were walking around that place, I was like on, I can't even say autopilot, like, but it wasn't necessarily me. Like I was like almost being guided through, like, in a sense, you know what I mean? Like there was just something, and I know you felt it too, and both of you felt it, because I remember you at one point saying something, and I took a step back, so I'm like, let me see what's surrounding him, you know what I mean? And and there was like a dog man right next to you guys and shit. And I was like, I wonder if that had anything to do with it, because you said something about like you felt fear, but it wasn't your own. Like you
Mm,
picked up on fear. So immediately we went to like, oh, maybe one of the Montauk boys from the Montauk Project, which totally makes sense. That's where my mind went too. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's hard not. It's hard not to get carried away in that place. You know what I mean? Even with
yeah,
minimal knowledge, like I mean, I like to show Stranger Things. Like I didn't even know at first that was right there. Like I didn't know it was based off, a place I had gone. You know what I mean? Like my whole
yeah,
life. So
Well, that's
indeed.
the incredible part too. I mean, you get into that particular space, and we've often spoken about these particular spaces where, and it's actually very magical. You may have things pop up that people see, and then the next day they're not there. I'm sure Brian could tell us a little bit about that phenomenon,
Yeah,
as we've all experienced something very similar in this way. Now, again, the space itself is just, yeah, I could feel this electric charge as you would expect to. Um, but there was this overlapping of emotions that were just sort of swirling about, and they were all sort of encapsulated in this like blanket that sort of weighed on you when you walked through the park. And that was fear, sadness, melancholy, angst, anxiety. There was so much wrapped up in whatever you decided to kind of tune in, and on any given moment you could start to kind of develop and feel even more intensely. Unlike any space I've been before, and I have to say that whatever the impression was in Montauk, that was there for me personally, the best way I can describe how I feel since I've come back is that I've taken a plug, and yes, I was already connected energetically to this place, location, what have you, but now that I've been there physically, I plugged in, and now that cord is directly from me to Montauk, and it sort of kept the cyclical fashion about it. It's very odd. It's very deep. It's sort of like the silence within the stillness, if it makes any sense. And you can get lost in this, 100-yard stare, just feeling that sort of odd connection. But that indicative, I think, of the experience in the place itself, because I've been
yeah,
a lot of different places and locations, and I've never felt the way that I felt coming back from Montauk.
indeed. Yeah, there's a whole layers of emotions, like you said. They're all there at once, and that's something everybody that I've pretty much read. Like the first time they go, maybe they're just one comment, but they always mention that there's just all different kinds of feelings and emotions there, uh, and feeling of being watched. That's another thing people always mention. So all that
Absolutely.
together, maybe remnants of all the different things that were broadcast in the area. I mean, maybe they're still bouncing around, but
I'm sure there's
you're right.
some energetic signature that has to be left over, especially within the land itself. I mean, it's organic. So, within its own auric essence, if you will, I mean, even within nature, I think you'll be capturing some of that sort of high frequency transmission that may have gone on there at the height of the camp's activity there. Sorry, I can't talk. But yeah, long story short, again, it's one of these spaces where everything is present. Maybe it is a portal. Maybe there is a vortex, a very large one. I mean, even the Algonquin Indians had considered this place incredibly sacred, and all of the other tribes that were around, in and around Montauk, had a special affinity for this particular space. So, I mean, even what I was feeling there in that way, sure, maybe it was the Montauk boys, maybe it was the accumulation of all these different odd and terrifying experiences that have happened on the ground, but
sure.
also, in addition, maybe it was something much more ancient that I was picking up off of. I mean, just that place alone makes you feel like you're floating from your belly up. It's really strange.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I mean, there was like, Brian, how many times did it change hands? It was in two different branches, the
Yeah,
army and the Air Force, or what? I forget.
actually, even more like it started with the army way back. Like it was loosely structured back then. After like getting into modern times, World War II, they had the Navy and the Army there, and the Coast Guard at the same time. But
Yes.
after that, like the base itself, Camp Hero itself, the property, that was mostly Army, and then they about half of it was turned over to the Air Force. But at one point, they had both the Air Force and the Army sharing the property for about 8 years. Then the Army left and came back a third time to make a Nike missile base that they never finished, and they didn't need it anymore. So the Army was there like in the beginning, and then like three other times. Air
Yeah.
Force, they had different. They kept becoming bigger, different incarnations of the Air Force. And then the Navy, they have the beach, and the Coast Guard is near the lighthouse. So I mean, they're all there. All the
Yeah.
branches pretty much
But I was
represent
showing,
there.
I don't know if I showed you yet, but I showed DHP that one video. There was this guy who was, I guess we figured out, like DHP watched it closely. He figured out the guy was working there, and that's how he was able to film it.
Oh,
But
wow.
when Sarah and I were there, like, I don't know how long ago, 6 months ago, whatever, it was the lighthouse was closed.
Oh, yeah.
But like, this is kind of prime season for it to be closed. You know what I mean? Like, why would
Yeah.
it be? And they had it all shut down because they were pulling, like, on the other side where you couldn't see down by the beach, they were pulling this huge World War II bunker out of there. And
Yeah.
I mean, this, you know, like, he said something. He's like, oh, you know, is it that little, you know, is it that, like, whatever you said, sandbox or whatever, like,
little pillbox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
pillbox.
said,
Yeah. And I said, watch when they pull it out, how much different it looks. And the thing's
Yeah.
freaking huge. And
Yeah.
Massive.
you know, but as a soldier, you know, like, there's a lot of shit that goes on base, like, alone. This is where I was going. A lot of shit that happens, you know, suicides, like, a lot of, you know, like 22 veterans commit suicide.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of shit that happens. So you can imagine what just happened within the military on that base, and then the secret shit that was going on, and then, like, you know, Sarah said maybe there's a portal there. Who, you know, there has to be a portal there because of all the stuff that they were
Indeed.
doing. Like, that was their main
Yeah.
mission, was to travel through time, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean, and do all these, not main mission. We don't know what the main mission was like. With they, God knows how much stuff they were doing. You know, that one room you pointed out, you're like, oh, that's the LSD room. Like, they used to give, you know, whatever, give the soldiers LSD and shit. Like,
Yep.
it's wild, man. Like, it's
Yeah.
wild. And, you know, you could feel it. Like, you could feel it as soon as you get close. It's like that 6 Mile strip is what I refer to, kind of like from like that
Yeah.
library area or whatever it is. Like, there's like something there on the side. It's like a church and maybe a library. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But then you kind of go out and I used to refer to the Crow's Nest, but that's not there anymore. That restaurant. So, like, I used to say from the Crow's Nest on, but that's not there anymore. But like,
wow.
you feel it, and I think the base is really on the side right there. You know, there's some houses in there scattered around now too, but I'm
Yes.
pretty sure it was all there. And you know, if you kind of go from that point, like right there where it starts, like on that 6 Mile strip out to here, if you kind of like just turned around and looked up directly, that's kind of where the burial grounds would be. The you know, the Native American burial grounds. I took him up there. It was it was pretty. It was nice. It was interesting. It was cool. Like, you know, seeing,
Yeah.
you know, Montauk Manor next to it all lit up and stuff.
Yes.
There's a weird energy up there in itself.
Definitely. And that
Oh,
was an
God.
Indian fort, you know, at one point. That was a pretty big fort they had. And there was a warring tribe that came and sacked that fort at one point. It was called, they have a Massacre Valley sign over there where like 32 natives lost their life, like trying to defend the fort. And
Wow.
yeah, there was 4 giant Indian forts, Native American forts in Montauk. And the one right at the point by the lighthouse was like the wampum factory. It was like the Fort Knox of wampum for the whole Northeast. So that's interesting, and that's supposedly an ancient power, you know, a power spot. And even if you look at the glacial terminal moraine, like where the glacier stopped, those are all like quartz and granite. You know, the whole thing. It's like a ridge of rocks, and it goes all the way up to Massachusetts, really. And just thinking about that, even those rocks, you know, people talk about being able to be charged up, be the Akashic record or the rock record. So I mean, there's probably multiple things going on in Montauk. That's what I think, at least. It's got a little of
That's a
everything.
curious observation, though, to notice that those quartz veins run all the way up the Northeast that way in through Massachusetts. I mean, this whole area, because, you know, you've got the Bridgewater Triangle out in Massachusetts, which is, you know, what are we looking at? Something like 500 square miles of forest. It could be actually bigger than that. It's been a while since I looked into the subject directly, but, you know, and this is an area that's purported to be completely paranormal, UFOs. I mean, you got cryptids in this place. All nature of abnormality, I should say, is found within this one area. But again, there's a connection, at least in way of topography, that, you know, brings together the glacial stones that are still here, and of course all that quartz crystal that's underneath our feet as we walk along the shores here.
Yep. Yeah, it's directly connected to us.
Yeah.
So,
Sarah said Camp Hero is the Area 51 of Long Island.
yes,
And
indeed.
you know, I've looked at I don't know, like, I've lived here my whole life and I haven't paid attention to what was here. And, you know, I looked when I started to look around because I was going to this one area and I didn't realize that was where the crash site was in '97, but a
Oh
UFO
yeah,
crash site. And it's like a big public park, but like
yeah,
they said it was shot down from Brookhaven Labs.
yep,
Maybe, I don't know, but it is pretty damn close. But
yeah,
Brookhaven Labs and then like Plum Island and Camp Hero, they form a perfect triangle. If you look at them, they have a little bit of a symmetry to them. And
yeah. That's right.
I don't know if there's anything to it, but when I looked them all up, like I looked them up in a row, you know what I mean, when I was Googling them, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden it had them mapped out, like, when I went to the third one, it had them all, kind of pinned,
Yeah,
and I was like, oh shit, like, you know what I mean? Like it almost, I don't
the
know.
Long Island Triangle. You're
Yeah,
right.
it almost looked like a UFO when I drew the lines to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Everything in that area is all kinds of crazy.
sure. Yeah. But
Very
I
cool.
like we were joking on the way out, like we're like, oh, like we ended up coming out here, like it's crazy, can't believe we made it, and like we were talking about the draw and this and that, and I was like, you know what? Technically, I mean, we all pretty much went through a hell to get out here.
Yeah,
We went out of our way to do this. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and we were kind of joking, like, because so many people were going out there, and we're like,
yeah,
what is the damn attraction? Why are people spending all this? Because the money you spend to go to Montauk, like, why are people going to the end of the island,
hmm,
like 50 miles, 100 miles tops away,
yeah,
to go on vacation and spend all these buku bucks when they could go like somewhere, you know, else,
Much more extravagant. Yeah.
much much more, and,
yeah,
and for the most, it literally, like, not home, like it's almost home. It's not far from home, but
yeah,
people are like drawn to that fucking place
yeah.
nonstop all day long. There's never not traffic. Like, but what is
Yeah.
sucking these people out there? You know what I mean? Like, what
Good point.
when you get
Good
out
point.
there, like when we drove through the town, I was like, here it is, and you're like, oh wow, cool, is this it? I'm like, yeah, now it's over. Like, like it's like you drive through and
It's
it's like
short.
there's
It's
really
very
nothing.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quick.
No,
I
it's
mean,
small.
it is. It's very
Yeah.
small.
And in that little block, there's so many people just
Yeah, I mean,
crammed in there.
you could defend it and be like, oh, there's Gosman's Dock, and there's over here, and then there's Star Island, and there's places to go, and it's really not, but it's small.
Yeah.
The town itself is a little rinky-dink town.
Yep.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
100%.
yeah, I don't know.
And you drive
It's
right
so,
through all the other Hamptons, and
yeah,
you
there's
kind of
nothing.
on the
There's
other
really
side.
not much to do there, but like
Yep.
everybody will tell you how much they love it there.
It's weird. I mean, even when we're driving through, Mike, I think, you looked out at one point. This must have been on the way out there the first time. You're like, look how beautiful it is out here. I want to live out here already. Or just being out here, whatever you had said. It's in the documentary I put together. But that being said, once you get out there and you feel how nice some of the areas do feel, and believe me, this energy that's in Montauk is pervasive. It goes through all of it, but your body sort of acclimates or adjusts to it, and you still feel it, but you're sort of wearing it like a cardigan rather than wet towel. So yeah, but again, the scenery out there is still very gorgeous. But I do appreciate what Mike is saying here is that what the hell's the draw to this little town that still has a lot of its antiquity to it. But if you wanted to find something more along those lines, you could head up to Maine and get even more authentic in respected time periods and what may be left in the way of history. So it's interesting, and maybe there's an energy that actually pulls people out to that area, and most of them have no idea that's maybe what's baiting them.
Here's a good
Very
question.
true.
Mm.
I
That's
guess
going
that.
to
Oh
take
yeah.
time, though. That's a good
I,
question, but it's going to take time.
Yeah. I
yeah,
think
I don't.
I'm sure.
I'll
Go ahead.
probably clean it up as best I can, do the preliminary cleaning and then try to find a service like one of those. There's commercials out there to preserve your family movies. I checked out one and those guys pay really close detail. I mean, God knows what they'll find on it if they did. But I was thinking of trying to have it professionally done maybe instead of, I don't have the equipment to do it, but that would be the best shot to see what's on it. But what do you guys think?
Watch it be some local hip hop MC's mixtape.
Oh, that'd be
That
cool.
that
But,
so like Brian, the way it kind of, I'll tell this, the way it went, kind of like in my mind anyway, I wasn't necessarily searching for something, but I was like putting it out there that I wanted something for Brian. He was telling me on the way out like how he had something, and like he carried it out. It took him forever. It was so heavy, and he dragged it out because he wanted it, like, because it was a piece of Camp Hero, and he had left it at his mother's house, and she saw it as a piece of junk and was like, oh, whatever, I'll help him, whatever, you know like, was
Chuck
just
it.
cleaning the house and stuff, and he's been out of the house a while, so she threw it out, and he was like, no, but like, I was like, oh man, if there's anything out here, like, let us find it. Like, this guy's
Thank you.
went through hell out here, like, he scoured this place up and down. If there's anything out here, just let us find it.
Thank you, man.
I didn't think anything was going to come from it. Not that that's where it came from, but I mean, I was
Yeah,
putting it out into the universe, if you will.
the intention.
And
Mhm.
that spot, I mean, we were trying to figure out how it could have happened. So there was a couple of like parking spots there. I think they were for RVs. So maybe one had backed into there and really smashed open that area. Because I went in because I assumed maybe, Junior has a reputation for, tearing shit up. So I was like, oh, maybe, maybe. I don't know. Maybe he was just over here and he tore up and through there for some reason. Whatever. I'll take a look. And man, right away I seen that thing and I was like, holy shit. So I picked it up. And then I picked it up and I put it back down. I'm like, let me go get them and like show them and see what they think. I really didn't see it going that well. Like, I don't know. Like, but I seen after I saw your excitement, I saw, like, I see now like what value it holds, in itself, even if there's nothing on there.
True. It's the find itself, and
It's
but there's
just odd.
something on there.
I mean, you look at how it was in the soil there. Clearly, this thing was placed there within the last, I'd safely say 30 years, maybe. Maybe it's even older. I really know. It isn't under the cover of brush, so I mean, it's protected from the elements to some degree. But usually when you look in archaeology, I think it's for every inch of soil, you're looking at 100 years. So if we're saying this was about a half inch down, maybe where it was kind of partially buried, yeah, maybe 40, 50 years, which again is still very interesting that this analog tape has held up the way it has. And it's quarter inch. It's quarter inch, but it's a big reel to reel. And, even in the older days, you would find these sort of reel to reels in possibly bugging equipment. Certainly in police offices, they'd have these sort of reel to reels for taping conversations and so forth. So it's definitely a dated piece of art. It's an artifact of sort. It certainly is an artifact because we don't know what it is.
That would be cool enough if you could get it dated to the point where they find out that it is in that time era. You know what I mean? If it's from that time era. You know what I mean? Because it would suck if you found out it was from like, like it's just beat to shit and it's from like, 2012. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but
there's
I
more
don't know.
common.
It
There's
looked
a
like
date code, right? It's on film. Is there some kind of? I've seen on shows, like sometimes you can find a date code somehow. I'll have to look into it.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
To do what?
Like find a date code or some kind of serial numbers that tell you a little more about it. It might be on the metal or on.
Right,
film.
right.
Yeah, somewhere on there. I'll take a look. Anything I could search and see what I could find. Who knows? But that was just an amazing find. Regardless, I mean, it's just I've been to that spot so many times. I've just I'd never seen it. Never. Yeah, I didn't even see that trail really. That was kind of opened up. But it takes a certain eye. You just look down and the right time, and the feeling.
And then like
draw.
and then we started talking about it too, and you can't help but wonder how the hell it got there. But yeah, I created this scenario. I'm like, maybe somebody was like running from the from the lab or whatever, and like trying to get away, and they were like, I can't just, if I escape, nobody's gonna believe me or whatever. You know what I mean? So they took a piece of evidence, and maybe when they got caught, they like threw it and tried to get it later, or they get tackled there or something. I don't know. Like it's so hard not to like let your mind, like entangle.
It's anomalous though.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It's a weird thing to be out
like
there.
It normally would.
Yeah, but that's what got me so like, my gears turning about it. I'm like, how the hell? Like, because you got to wonder, how did nobody see it? Like, it was tossed in there quite a bit. You know what I mean? It just happened to be that those woods were just smashed out. Like, and it looked like it just had happened. Like, it was just good timing. It was really good timing.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking logically. I'm not trying to think of like like somebody parted the way for us, like to give us something,
Yeah.
like Junior or something. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
trying to think more
Right.
on a logical level.
Exactly. It's out of
Of
place for
course.
sure. It's
I'm
definitely.
looking very quickly because I know, Brian, you had covered the finding of that reel-to-reel tape. I'm going to try to cue this up, share it with Mike, and hopefully you guys can see it.
Oh, yeah, I think it's on
Uh,
the part one, maybe.
I think you're right. Let me see
Yeah.
here. This has got to be it. But yeah, again,
Yeah.
this is just, it's weird. And the cool thing about Camp Hero 2 is that, you're walking through and it's clear that people are trailblazing, but to an extent where these other small paths start
Mm-hmm.
to emerge. And, you guys were saying on several occasions, oh, I never saw that there. Or even Peter Moon was saying, oh, I don't remember
Yeah.
that path. But these are still there. Or there was something that used to go through here. There's no longer anything like that. It's totally grown in, thicker
Yeah.
than you could ever imagine. And there's no way to get back into some of those spots on the location. But it's curious.
Yeah.
It
Sometimes
was.
winter is a good bet.
Larry wants to know where it was found. It was
It was
somewhere between the bluffs and like I
it's
don't know.
like
Maybe you could tell him better.
yeah, well, it's like old Montauk Highway. It kind of runs along the bluffs, and it's more like rocks. It didn't. It used to be a trail. Now it's kind of paved, but that's a spot where people park and go down onto the beach for. I think it was a fisherman's spot, or
Yeah,
people use it for surfing. It wasn't the original fisherman's
I
parking lot,
think you
but
have to have a permit for that spot.
yeah, it's one of the few places you could go to the beach, and as a marker in the water, there's a cement, old big square dock remnant, like a big cement cube. If you look from above, it's right near there, basically, the trail that goes down. So
I shared it with you there, Mike.
nice.
I'm all queued up whenever you're ready.
Oh, go ahead. I don't know how to do that. If you do, go for it.
Oh, just bring the screen in like it was another guest. It should be down there next to
Oh,
me.
oh shit, that's cool. All right. What do I do?
Super easy. Just select
Add
it
to
like it was
screen.
you were just bringing it in like another
Okay.
guest.
All
There we
right.
go.
Oh, this is fucking cool.
Oh wow.
Look at me go. Yay. Thanks, bro.
Oops. Oh, crying out loud. I just lost a spot. I just had it. All right, we are approaching it, and this looks to be about where we need to be. Damn, I had it just queued up.
Yeah.
I hit the wrong thing.
That's it.
All right, let's take a look here.
Thick.
This is awesome.
Huh. He's not up that way. Maybe he's behind us.
We're still looking for.
I just was filming
looking
right
for you,
there.
Mike.
That's so funny. Let's see here.
There
I'm
we go.
interested.
There you go.
Oh wow, man, what is that?
Look at that old film.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me, man.
No. If
That's a
anybody
reel
can
to
bring it
reel.
back,
That's
he
a reel
can.
to reel. Holy shit.
Holy shit, Brian.
This is like something you'd find on Randonautica or something. This is amazing, man. I say we take it. Definitely, man. I'll send it to those people who convert like the old home movies
Yep.
and see if they could get
If
something off it.
anybody can.
That is bizarre, right?
There it is. Look at that thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes right up to the bluff or
It's a
baby
reel
bluff.
to reel.
That is amazing.
You never know. Maybe something can be salvaged off of that, and
I
that's
was
just
thinking
You
lying,
could-
lying around on the topsoil.
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Good
Oh my god.
eye, Mike.
Yeah, man.
Good eye.
Tape looks in good condition. Good eye.
I mean,
indeed. That was-
inside, that it doesn't look like water has gotten in there too far,
No.
which is very interesting too. I don't know how
Yeah,
that worked.
it-
I mean,
it-
if it wasn't the sun, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're right though. It doesn't like, and I think it was literally like it like the bluffs came up, but then there was a bunch of brush, like you know what I mean? It was like it's like the road, like everyone was traveling was there, but it was in a little bit. It was like dead in between where the bluffs would be by the water, and like where it would take like abuse from the sea,
Yeah.
and it was just far enough in where it wasn't getting a lot of like foot traffic or traffic.
Yep. And
I
even
really,
sun.
it just happened to be blown open in that spot, like just that spot was smashed. Like it was like, you know what I mean? You know, like
Yeah.
that's why I went in there because it was all beat up, like something tore in there.
Yeah, I don't even. I went there not too long ago, and I don't even remember that path being open at all. And there's no sun damage, so I mean, it must have been in the shade, and like you said, perfectly. It's almost preserved, even though there's dirt all
It's
over it.
weird, yeah.
Yeah, because film usually falls apart, you know, after it gets old. It crumbles in your hands, and that looks like it's strong. So
Yeah, I
high
think
hopes for it.
I don't. You know, either way,
Either way, it's cool.
it was exciting to see how excited you were. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you'll hear me in my footage, like, oh, that went better than I expected. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I like I really thought I was like, oh, this is cool, but like it's not. It's different for me. Like you saw my excitement when I got like the gift from Junior, like the J, like that's
That was
literally just like a piece of steel. But like that's what got me excited because that's my
Yeah.
you know that's my thing. Like, you know what I mean? So it's funny. Like it's just it's just funny how things work out.
That Jay was just like sitting on a rock too, just like right in front of us.
Yes.
Like on that
Yeah.
boulder. That's
Yeah.
strange.
Well, like
That was weird too.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, at first, like it was, I wasn't really feeling anything about it, and then once I touched it, like, and I held it, like, then I was like, oh shit, like I could feel that it was a gift, but I didn't. Excuse me. Usually, I can tell from sight, but I had to pick it up to like get the vibe off of it that it was an actual gift. Because if it's not a gift, I'll put it back. You know what I mean? Especially at Camp Hero. I'm very, very picky about what I take from that place now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't even want to take a rock home from there, but I don't have to. You don't know what's in there, so I like to know
Yeah.
where it's coming from. You know?
That's
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's just another one of those places that you don't want to remove things from, and have them on your person when you leave the area. If you weren't given that as some sort of gift, I mean, you could be attracting some problems, to say the very least. And of course, Mike here can tell you some of the things that he went through in taking a stone home. I think it was right.
What's that? Oh yeah, yeah. The last time I went, I did. Yeah. I brought a stone home, and I felt like something was just off for days, almost a week after. Like I was getting like snippy and shit. Like I was getting like kind of like angry. I was like I don't know. Like there was just something off, and I was like, son of a bitch. And like I went and I took that thing and I brought it outside, and I put it outside. And after that, like I went back in. It felt totally different in the house.
Wow.
And I know it sounds silly, but it was beyond superstition. It was a physical thing I noticed. You know what I mean? Like it was a physical feeling that I could sense and feel, and that's a tangible thing in itself for me.
truly.
Absolutely.
You got to take the right
Absolutely.
item, you know.
Jimbo says the Guggenheim.org can help assist with the real tapes.
Perfect. I'll definitely check
Pretty good
that
idea.
out. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like I almost don't want to send it out, but I will though. Yeah. So
To the
just in
right
case.
person, the right company. Absolutely.
Exactly. I'm sure they'll send it back, But it's funny.
But
I
it
took
wasn't.
home.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, it's just I was thinking of what you just said about the rocks. I have these. I just took home the first time I was there. I took home this rock. It's really. I don't know if you can see it, but the top side is like it's a perfect triangle. Well, not a perfect, but the top side has like a weird coating, almost like it was painted on. It's not on the bottom. And then not long, like a couple of days later, I was at that beach that I took you to there, like on the shores where there's like some native artifacts, and I heard like the knocking on 3 knocks. I thought it was just somebody hammering on a roof. And I looked down and I found 2 more of these same kind of rocks. One's like an oval with almost like the painting on top, or like another kind of rock pressed onto the top. And then I found this one. It was like almost like a coffin shape or something, and it's got like sparkle kind of rock on top and not on the bottom. So they're all like very similar. And I've never seen anything like these, on one side and not the other. I took it as something, so I just took them because I felt like it was something in particular. I don't know. It was interesting. So
Sure. I mean, this rock to me looks like a rock, and then but when I look at it from this side, like it looks like it's almost like a reptilian, like a dinosaur.
oh yeah, see the eye.
Yeah, like
Yep,
so.
yep.
I mean,
Profile,
some people might not see that, but to me, like it was looking at me. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, it was nice. I like dinosaurs. Like, that's what I saw. I saw like a brontosaurus when I looked at this. Other people might walk right past it. It might be just a rock, whatever. But this thing was cool to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But we have in our house, we have enough rocks from our walks and our outings and stuff. So we're gonna, at our forever home or whatever, we're gonna make a rock garden.
Cool.
But that's how many we have. We have baskets and baskets of rocks and stuff.
Nice.
That's a good idea, though.
Yeah, well, I'm not that bright. Sarah's, she's like, I want a rock garden. I'm like, oh, it's perfect. Yeah.
Get all the material for it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course, we did go out to Camp Hero. That was quite a focus for us being out that way. But we went to other places in Montauk. Brian, actually, I believe, Mike, you showed me the Brewster House first. But then when I was with Brian, we actually got out and did a light report right there on the porch. There's so much history to these places. And again, there's a reason that energy, whatever it is, expands throughout the town. It's not localized to one area that you can put your finger on. It's pervasive, as I mentioned. The Brewster House, very, very cool. Brian, will you tell us a little bit about this dilapidated place now and what it used to kind of look like in its splendor?
Sure. I mean, that it's in a place called Flinders. It's almost like when you first get onto the South Fork or the South Peninsula of Long Island. And basically, it was an inn. They started like building it in like the 1600s, right around the time the country colonists were coming here. And then basically they turned it into, in the boarding house era, or at some point in the 1880s, they turned it into the Grove House. That's when Teddy Roosevelt stayed there for like 4 days of hunting and fishing, probably in this area. And basically, I think that was when he was returning from Camp Wyckoff from Montauk. So basically, either on his way out there or on the way back, or sometime in that year. And then, later on, it turned into a different name, the Brewster House, in the 20s. And that's when Al Capone stayed there during Prohibition, which Montauk has huge ties with rum running in the Prohibition era, as you know. And then, later on in the 50s, it was like the police station for the area for some reason. And the chief of police had killed himself and committed suicide in there. He hung himself in the ballroom. And another caretaker killed himself about 10 years later. That was, there every day working. So you start wondering, like, why are these people doing this? Is the house driving them to it? But it's got that feeling, it looks like the stereotypical haunted house when you look at it, like something you'd see on like a Halloween drawing or something. And besides all of that, it's just the feeling there. You could look at the place and you kind of get a vibe of a lot of time has passed, a lot of events have happened there. But at first it was for like some of the power brokers from New York City, in the turn of the century. They would all come out, and it cost some money to go there in the beginning. And it's ever since like the 60s or something, that place has been abandoned and it's just been falling apart. So I'm sure people have gone there.
It was echoing really bad. Are you guys talking about that blue house?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had never seen it before either, honestly, but I saw it on the way out to get you at the ferry. Brian showed it to me for the first time before that, so that was actually the first time I saw it too, or at least I know of.
Well, I mean, even walking up on the porch and you just look into the house, because the door in the front here, there's just a screen on it. There wasn't like a second door or a window, so you could literally just look right into the house. And as I did for the first time, sometimes when you look into a space like that, it feels much more cavernous than it's supposed to be. And perhaps it even seems a little darker, maybe like, whatever light is in there is sort of constricting while you're looking in. To me, that's usually an indication that there's something else manipulating the environment that you might be. And that's what I saw, and you feel it at the same time as you see it, sometimes stronger in feeling, believe it or not. That kind of makes you step back, and that's how I kind of first approached it. I even said to Brian, I was like, Brian, come on over here, check this out. And I said, you feel that? And, Brian, I think you had said that you did feel something off of looking into that house there.
Like you don't want to look into the door almost.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've done a lot of things in the area, like as far as like, my Bigfoot walks and, cryptid strolls, whatever you want to call it. I never knew that was there, but the whole area itself around it has a lot of energy too in itself, but I didn't get out. So, but driving by, even like it gives off a certain vibe. You know what I mean? Like it's almost, I don't know how to explain it. It like it kind of captures you. You know what I mean? I don't remember seeing anything around it except that. Like
Yeah.
I remember just like I don't remember anything within the next like prior to or after. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
kind of
Hmm.
only remember focusing on that. Like it definitely like caught my attention. And yeah, it's a old beat up house, 2-story, bright, not bright, but blue, like sky blue. You know what I mean? Like so
Yeah.
it would get your attention, but not really. You could just drive past it and miss it and just say it's a dump. You know what I mean? But it's not that. Like it's more. There's definitely more to it.
I see the Coral End, the question there about the basement. There is like a really deep basement, like unusually deep, because I remember seeing a hole in the floor and looking down, and it was like a dirt floor in the basement, and it was like, I don't know what a normal basement level is, like 12, 13 feet or something. This seemed like 16, 18 feet deep. It was just like, and it looks like I didn't even see stairs how to get down there. Maybe the collapse, but it was a creepy basement, like something you see out of like, it definitely there was beams down there, they said, from the 1600s. So there might have been some other
Wow.
structures there that they turned, they just kept building it bigger. I do have a picture somewhere. I'll try to find it and throw it up. But that, they're going to knock that down soon. So I'm really glad we went there, because they're talking about, bring it. They tried to save it for history and all this stuff, but nobody ever was able to like fix the structure. So eventually it won't be there. So
Yeah, I mean it's on its last legs. There's no
yeah,
doubt about that. I mean, I was very happy that we got there the time we did because next time I come visit, it may not be there, but
true,
it was
true.
surprisingly accessible for an abandoned house. I mean, a lot of these places they're fenced off. There's barbed wire everywhere.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
yes, we could park down the road a little bit and walk up to it and access it right there from the roadside. But there was, I mean, if we wanted to chance it, we could have even walked through the damn thing. Of course,
yeah,
then you're risking, lawful action there. So, we're not going to be doing that. But the option was there in the way of, again, just accessibility. It was different and sort of a throwback to those houses that you might explore when you were kids, where there wasn't really so much worry about trespassing. Nobody was doing anything they shouldn't be. They're just in there exploring, back in the late 80s or the early 90s.
very true. I heard some weird sounds coming out of that house once when I was a kid, actually. Me and my friend were just standing outside and we were nearby. And we just heard it. We thought it was like a kids in the woods making some kind of like a prank, almost like everybody at the count of 10 make as many noises as you can or something like that. But what we heard all of a sudden out of nowhere, we just heard like probably 10 or 15 people like wailing and screaming and shouting. It sounded terrifying. And we heard like chains and metal. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. It was like a good 10, 12 seconds of this. We were like, got the goosebumps. We were like, what the hell is that? And then that was it. We never figured out what it was.
Well,
But
that
I
that
remember that.
that house has a lot of history too, not just Teddy Roosevelt, right? Afterwards, you said it turned into a few different things,
Yeah. Police
including a
station.
police station or whatever.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I think like the chief, not the chief, but
Yeah. The chief, it was.
yeah, the
You're
chief
right.
committed suicide there. And I was saying to Michael, I was like, you gotta wonder what the hell happened.
Yeah.
Like the chief is like, you're high in status, like you've gone a long way through, you know what I mean? Your tours and stuff.
Yep.
Like at least in the military, like we don't hear about like the sergeant major committing suicide. It's usually
Yeah.
like, the guys that are younger and the guys that are like, like
Good
they don't
point.
have a lot going for them yet. Like that, he's at the top of his prime of his career and his life and close to retirement to know that you would commit suicide at that point. You got to wonder. I mean, it
Yeah.
could be on a personal level, you know what I mean? He could have came down with some kind of, mental illness or whatever, but I
Yeah.
wonder, if that house has so much history, what aided in it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah. It's
um
straight out of a horror, like a movie. Almost.
yeah. And then as far as Teddy Roosevelt goes, like, I mean, I have a deep appreciation for him because
Yeah.
he told a story, an account he had of a what do you believe? It's we piece it together as a Bigfoot. Like we want it to be a Bigfoot because he, something came into his camp him and I think he was with a guy named. It's weird. I want to say it's Brewster. I want to say that's who he was with. A guy named
Wow.
Brewster. Nobody knows his first name still to date, but he's the one that like told the other at the account.
Oh, wow.
It might. Oh, man, I gotta look into that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. But anyway, this happened in Montana, I believe. Anyway, it wasn't around here. But they had something coming to camp, and they were like, "Wow, that was a big bear." And like, he was like, it was walking on two legs, and like they kind of laughed it off, like, well, one didn't see it and one did, and he was like, "Shut the fuck up," you know what I mean, like type shit, like no, like,
Yeah.
like oh, that big ass bear walked in here, like on two legs, and then when they both saw the evidence that it came in on 2 feet. And they were out in the middle of nowhere, and it trashed the camp for the second time on two legs, you know what I mean? And there was evidence that it trashed their area.
Huh.
And they made it through the night or whatever, but they had a lot of activity that night, and they saw it, and he never said, oh, it was a Sasquatch, but everything he describes, says it was a Sasquatch,
Yeah.
being territorial, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, Mike, go
amazing.
ahead and while you're talking, go ahead and share the video clip underneath from Montauk is Strange. This is just the visual that I'll give you here as we're talking through. You can just see the Brewster House. Larry Hart, I'm looking at you, seeing as you've been asking so many questions. Check it out. Check it out, my friend.
I didn't even see this yet.
It was such a cool spot. It really was.
You came from the side. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like the side view.
Yeah.
It's got like the cross gables of the.
There's a lot of brush back there too.
Yeah.
I thought it was right on the water. I thought it was jutted right up against the water.
There's like a trail back there that goes probably a couple 100 feet down to the water. But it's woods behind there, definitely. Some of those pines go right up to the bay. That's what I was just telling you, the story there.
Yeah.
That's the back view. You can see like the cross gable. So the front view has I think it's 4 stories above, and then the deep basement. So
it's a huge house.
Yeah, there's like 26 bedrooms, I think they said.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of property. I guarantee you that's what it's about. It's about property. They'll probably knock it down and put up some stupid
Oh, they always do.
Amityville on steroids.
It does have those like 2 eyes and mouth almost looking windows like that.
Just needs those half triangular. I forget what the name of those bay windows were.
Oh yeah, those.
It looked just like that, yeah.
Yeah, Larry, I don't know how to do this shit. I gotta thank DHP for doing this part.
This was easy. You picked it up real quick, brother.
No, well, I mean, I don't know how to do it on my own. Yeah.
No, I'll teach you how to do that. It's easy.
All right.
I got you. No problem.
Hey, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
You can see here there is a gate around it, but for all intents and purposes, it's not really serving anything except structure for the foliage to grow on. I don't think they're too concerned with what happens, to this house, but at the same time, I could be wrong, and maybe there is some sort of effort underway that we're just not aware of in way of restoration or at least preservation. I mean, a lot of work would have to be done on this house, Brian, to bring this up to any sort of modern code, but it's still standing, as you can see.
Absolutely.
Still up, and this is there's that front door again. There's just the screen on it. Maybe there was another door behind it, but it certainly wasn't closed. I don't recall exactly. I'll have to go back and look at some of the. If
I think you opened it up.
Yeah, you should see it. There we go. And we get to the threshold. Yep, there it is.
Yep,
yeah, I don't know if it's hard to see, but inside here on the right, as soon as you walk in, there's this beautiful hearth fireplace that I didn't see if it was marble or what have you, but out of the corner of my eye, I could see it was a really nice old world fireplace that people would be hanging out in in front of the fireplace. I mean, I'm sure that there were a lot of good memories here for a house that has this much history. Uh, it's
Somebody,
sometimes hard not to have something dark occur
yeah,
in life
after all
in
that
general,
time.
I think. Yeah. Of
Very true. The locks
course,
were
other
actually
places do
clipped.
see. Yep. Yeah, there are two of them, two sets sitting right there on the ground, right next to each
Yep,
other.
there they are. Somebody must have just did that before us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe, huh? I knew we were
Yeah, so
coming.
I've heard the structures fall. You could fall through the floor. I've heard from people who have been in there, and there's supposedly like huge families of raccoons that live in there, and owls and all kinds of wildlife. But also people, I'm sure, have cut all the copper pipes out by now, stuff like that. So
Yeah, it's sad
Yep.
to say, but that's something that happens a lot. People go and ransack the copper.
yeah, so sometimes they cut the gas pipes and stuff like that, not
Yeah,
knowing.
and I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, depending how much you're in need of money, depends what you decide to take.
yeah. So hopefully, they take their time tearing it down, so maybe we can get in there. And I like if I had my spotlight, we could have seen the floor and see where we could step. Maybe we probably would have taken a few steps in there very
Right.
carefully.
And if
And
that
because
basement is as deep as you say it is,
exactly,
Brian.
we need a rope ladder to get out of there. There's the front of the house. That's a pretty good shot of. You can see how many floors at least.
Just enormous. I really wonder the grandeur this particular property held at its prime. I mean, it looks like it was once something to behold.
Yeah, and that road that it's on, 24, it was the only way to get from Brooklyn to Montauk back at this time. Even up
Hmm.
until like I think the 50s and 60s, that was like the main road to go if you wanted to go from New York City out any points east to the Hamptons. Before Sunrise Highway was built, you would have to take Flinders Road. It's
Yeah,
called for 2024.
yeah. I think at one point it was just 25A and then to 24, whatever,
Yep,
something to that effect. And yeah,
exactly.
25A was the only way to get from like Manhattan to the East End.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, Larry, we didn't go inside further than what you just saw there because, again, as Brian was mentioning, the structure's integrity is very much compromised. And, you know, safety first, of course, as much as I was curious and would have loved to go in there and explore. I didn't really want to fall through the floor. Um, it's just not a good time. So, yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get too far in. I mean, you're asking some of these questions. I'm curious. Are you looking for properties like this to restore? Are you in touch with a company? Do you have your own
Yes.
endeavor? What's your thought in some of these questions you're asking about this particular property? Because believe me, if you are somebody who can restore something like this, that would be quite exciting to hear. So I'm just curious where you're coming from there, Larry.
I wonder. It's
Uh,
probably hard to. I think it's kind of hard to get. It's probably hard to get a hold of because that's a beautiful property, and I'm pretty sure somebody would do it. Yes, it's probably tied up somehow. You know what I mean? If it's been owned by so many different people at this point, different places, different. If it was like if it's what do you call it? If they made it like a historical site at this point, it's probably hard to buy. You know what I mean? If they made it,
yeah.
if it's owned by the state, it's probably hard to get at this point.
I think it's privately owned, and
Okay.
the people who were trying, there was a newspaper article, they were trying to restore it, and they ran into all these different problems with code,
Uh,
and but I think it's still maybe for sale, or they just didn't have anybody who could,
right.
do something with it. But I saw Larry asked if it is close to the
Yes,
Big Duck. It's very
exactly.
close,
Yeah, it's
and
very close. Yeah.
Scotty B asked the time. Well, the basement timbers have wood as old as mid 1600s, and then the rest of the house was added on to continuously through up until like 1950, I think. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody could save it, that would be awesome. Just
Bro,
like
you're like a local. Yeah, yo, you know what though? Like, I'm a local guide on Google. Like, I've been doing it for like a year now,
yeah,
and like, I have like over 500,000 people that have like followed shit that I've done or whatever. Like, but like,
nice.
bro, like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, you could be a very big help to people with like answering questions, and You know what I mean? Like, and
Sure.
like just driving with you was like, it was literally. I've never just like nodded my head in silence so many times in my life, just listening to somebody who had so much stuff to tell me about where I live. Like, it was
Thanks,
amazing.
man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I think I look at things from the top all the time, even when I'm standing on the ground. I'm kind of looking from above. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know why. I just do that. And even when I go somewhere, I just kind of look at the map like that. So I guess it's just a different way to look at it. But I'm glad you liked it. I didn't want to go too much like here, but I figured it might set the groundwork and make some connections for where we were going too.
Yeah, Rob and Larry are local. They're local guys. I mean, I used to do restorations of different shit, but I was bad at it. Like,
Me too.
I was bad at it. I tell you honestly, I went into I did like Long Island is like
Trade.
a day laborer's place. Like you could just pick up jobs anywhere and do anything. And like, I did every trade under the sun. I took on glazier work for the most part because it was like profitable. Not a lot of people know how to do glass and mirror. And you can, it is you get a little bit extra money by doing that job, like almost like how an electrician gets more money because
Mm-hmm.
it's harder to do. You know what I mean? It's like there's a little more to it. Yeah, but I sucked at it, man. I was bad at it. So I always think it's amazing when somebody can like restore something like that. It's the confidence these two guys have, like they're like, I'll fix that shit. Like it's amazing to
Oh
me.
yeah, that is. I did
Oh,
the
I
same
love
as
that.
you. I worked all those things. Never was, I was always the helper. I wasn't gonna go past that. I realized, so
Mhm.
moved on.
That's
And
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
to mention here, we've talked a little bit about it, but Peter Moon, the author of the Montauk Chronicles, along with Preston Nichols, joined us out at Camp Hero, and he gave me his newest book, The Roswell Deception and the Demystification of World War II. I have begun to read this. It's pretty intense in way of the information that's being presented, and it's fantastic. Guys, go and check out that book that he just put out. I think what the guy's name was Dietrich.
Dietrich, yeah,
Dietrich, uh,
Dietrich,
Douglas Dietrich, and Peter Moon.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
very,
so.
very cool.
If you guys don't mind, while there's no questions involved right now, everyone keeps asking me about Junior. Who is Junior? Where did Junior come from? What like I don't really know. And I see Jimbo, and he's the one he was asking me, like we were talking privately, and he was like, asking me questions, and I couldn't give him a clear answer, and I felt bad. I don't know if you guys can like tackle that at all. If you
Sure.
Absolutely.
You want to start with how he was, manifested?
whatever, go with
Yeah,
it.
let's start with how he was created or why he was created.
Well, from the story, I mean, they say that he was manifested to put an end to the project out of thin air. And then there's, I guess, another camp where you say that this area has always had Bigfoot because of the native connection. So, I mean, I wonder about that part, but supposedly that he was pulled forward at some point to wreak havoc for that day. I think it was August 12th, right? 1983. So, but from the picture that I was just going to look for, actually, I have one here that I could show you, but I don't have the close up. If you really do look at the close up of Junior's face, so to say, you can see the almost 2 ears, and what I see is a snout. That's in the book. You're looking deep into the black tones, and you can kind of see that. But the angle that they took it off of was on top of the radar down at the one bunker, and we took another. You can see how dark the figure is. At least I have that far away shot. If you want me to share it, I think I could hit.
And while he's
Share
pulling
button.
that up, I'll add a little more detail to Junior's legacy here. So essentially, as Brian said, Junior was created or manifested as a truncation of the Montauk Project and what they were doing in way of the portals and so forth. So this was actually devised by Preston Nichols, Al Balick, and Duncan Cameron. And Duncan Cameron would be the one in which to create this manifestation. Now, the idea was that he would be sitting in the Montauk chair at some point, and again, they coordinated this. They implanted him with a trigger word or a phrase, which was, "The time is now." If somebody says this to Duncan while he was in his trance-like state, he would then, from his subconscious, pull up the deepest, darkest image and make it real, then this would then destroy the base. Now the idea was to manifest this within the underground, but it didn't work that way. Junior just manifested somewhere on the base up above. And while he was doing this, he was running through, smashing and consuming anything and everything in his path, just complete destruction at its core. Now, the story goes that when Preston was able to eventually cut those lines, the power to the generators, and they were able to go back and turn them off in Philadelphia, wherever the hell the USS Eldridge was at that moment in the naval shipyard. Then they came back, and supposedly the idea was that Junior would fade away with the power. There wouldn't be anything to feed it anymore. It did fade out, but it was still there. And this particular photograph, if I'm not mistaken, that Brian is going to show us, was actually taken around a time that the Montauk project had already concluded, but it was very close to the time that this had happened. And that's when you see Junior up there on top of the battery 113, I think it was, Brian, right?
Oh, yeah, 112.
112, I'm sorry,
Same.
battery
They're
112.
twin sisters,
Correct.
so it's like same.
Yes.
Yeah. Very close.
But that's essentially the story.
Yeah.
And they do say, and even Preston in his 1994, 95, 92, one of those, I think it was 92 actually, when you see him walking around the camp with this, big 4-hour production he put together, he's on top of the radar tower, and you look over and he sees this big black outline of something out there against a building. He's like, yep, there's Junior. He's still here. Mm-hmm. So even then, they knew that this thing hadn't necessarily gone away. So in my belief that this thing is probably still there in some frequency, obviously not triggered in any way that's creating damage and problems on a physical level the way we see it. But there were certain things that even Peter had mentioned, wherein there was a time he was walking through and he and his friend had seen all these deer carcasses, almost as if they had been dropped from high elevations. He talked about looking at the carcasses and seeing hair growing out of the bones, almost as if they had been exposed to radiation. So, who knows? I mean, there's certainly something within the air there and within the environment that is easily felt, I think, if you especially go at the right time. And I don't mean just go at night, but, within certain cycles of energies and the seasons that some of these places are much more active, you can feel it there. You can feel it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like kind of as like wait, I'm getting an echo now, I think. I don't know.
I hear that.
Yeah, I don't even know what the hell that was. It sounded like a lamb at first second. But I keep dropping out because sometimes you guys are echoing and stuff, so I don't know. It's probably on my end because I don't use headphones. So anyway, yeah, so what was I gonna say now? That thing screwed me up.
I have that picture loaded up, but I don't know how to
yeah, I don't know. All right, let me see if it's there. Oh wow, there it is. Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
This shit is cool. All right.
Yep.
I know.
Okay,
so there it is. Like that's on the right is your photo, right?
Yeah.
And then on the left is like do we even know where this is from?
Battery 112. Or what? It was a photographer taking an aerial shot.
Jan.
He was working for a magazine or a news outlet. I forget which.
Yeah, he was. I have the original story, and he, the guy himself, wrote it. Who took the picture? I think he passed away ever since because they dedicated the book to him. But he was standing right where I was in the other photo to the right, like on the corner of the top of the roof of the radar.
Yeah,
and we're looking down, and that's where he got that photo there. And there's no tree that shape. We even went up there on the video and checked it out. I mean, that would be a huge tree to begin with, and it's not shaped like. I mean, it's kind of leaning forward,
Well, I mean, even I sent it to you guys. I don't even know if you saw it, but there's on the alternate side, there's the same shape, same body type, but it's only from like shoulders up, peeking right, kind of like peeking right over the same thing. And that's the reason I sent it to you because it reminded me directly of that. And that was, I immediately when I saw you guys over there, whatever, when I immediately saw that, I was drawn to what was behind it. Like, I turned around. And I was drawn to that area in there, and I'm still drawn to it. I didn't really get to go in there as much as I'd like. Night was falling on us. We were like, it was a lot darker in the canopy than it was, because when I came back out of that canopy, it was bright again. Like I was like, oh, it's not even as dark as it was in that canopy. But it kind of felt like a Bigfoot playground down there.
And if you look at this
Absolutely.
photo too, in relation to the entrance of the battery and the growing trees around, you can see that this is a massive figure. And oddly enough, it does look like we have a head, the arching back, possibly an arm over to the right. Now, another facet that you'll notice looking closely in at this video is that he seems to be somewhat transparent. Again, this is in line with the idea that Junior is still there, but within the folds of dimension and vibration, if you will. Just like possibly the paranormal or, some sort of ghost hunting, we can still capture a fleeting image of this particular being. But again, he's massive. We're talking, based on that, we're talking a good, if I were to take an educated guess here, 12, 15 feet, maybe.
Definitely. That's a good guess.
It's enormous, man.
Yeah.
And I love this comparison.
Very big.
Yep.
Very. Because that bunker, I mean, you guys have seen now, you guys have seen these bunkers in person. They're huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're huge, and it's even just that part that goes over the top there is massive, and to see that, I don't know, I would there. We should have footage of you up there, Brian, right?
Yeah, I think you got some, and I had a piece of it on mine. I think actually that's from Danielle's camera. I didn't get that yet, but I think I saw it twice or three times, and you could see my own view up there. That's what it is. Looking down, you can see you guys are like, really tiny in my view down there. And that thing slopes down pretty good. That overhang that you see, the half circle when you're up there.
Super steep.
Yeah.
Even getting up there is very treacherous. I mean, you're following a grooved path, but I mean, you're literally hanging on a trees on a 90 to what was it?
Yeah.
Oh God, was it 120 degrees?
Yeah, you're sliding down pretty good on that. So
the way the land was, it was very, very perilous, but certainly worth the voyage up there to get the view and looking around, for any evidence that would support this picture here being something other than what it's purported to be. Again, we didn't see anything in that way, and again, in the picture you can see how very close that figure is to the bunker. You don't have to stray too far.
That Jimbo wants to know approximately how far away is this photo taken. I'd imagine they were like close to the street at this point, like to the, you know what I mean, in the entryway when we walked into the battery. Probably is where this was taken from.
This is from the roof of the radar, so it's like 500 feet or meters. Let me see. It's I think it's 500 meters, but I'm not sure.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe the photographer was either up in a helicopter or some sort of private plane wherein he was taking shots of Camp Hero, and so he has taken this from quite some distance. And in both photographs, they're both framed and zoomed to fit.
So this one on the right is the picture I took, standing on the roof of the radar. That's where the guy was, on the very corner of the big radar, the roof, the ANFPS 35, the Montauk radar, as we would call it. But that's basically the same exact. I tried to get as close to the angle as the original.
That's awesome. That's pretty fucking cool, bro.
So I think he's, like you said, just under 20 feet in that photo. Maybe 18 feet.
Western New York Bigfoot investigation says, well, I'm not aiming the pareidolia cannon at it. It's something, I don't know what, but it's something. Certainly,
right?
It's right there in its environment. Look at the definition to some of the other standing structures. Whatever it is, it's definitely there. That I think we can be conclusive about in way of legitimacy of this particular photograph. Now, analyze it further and say it's X, Y, and Z. It's going to be a little bit more nebulous, but at the same time, we can agree that there is certainly something there, my friend.
Yeah.
That's an older photo, I'd imagine too. It looks like I think it's I don't know, like the lay of the land even looks different.
A lot of different growth since
they've done different things to the. We don't know why they go in there and they fence off these bunkers and they like paint them and they change the doors on them and shit. I mean the small doors, you know what I mean? Yeah. But they like change them and like what they're always doing. Even when we got there, I didn't expect it to happen because I was like expecting, Camp Hero to make a liar out of me. But I was always saying like, yo, they're always doing construction there. There's an unnecessary amount of like shit going on there. Right as we pulled in, boom, off limits construction, and like like they had it all fenced off and everything. Like, what are they doing down there? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
what are you
What are
guys
they doing?
doing? And there
They're
is
not
no. The fucked up part is there is no physical like construction site down there. There's no structures down there at all. There are no buildings.
Yeah.
There's only the one bunker that I've showed you guys about 6 months ago or so. I went out to the left of, if you're facing the bluffs entrance and you go and looking over the bluffs, if I went to
Yeah.
the left,
Yeah.
there's this like it's between the bluffs and the lighthouse. There's like a, I don't know what it is, Brian. What is it? A bunk? Is
That's
that a bunk? It's like a
yeah.
cat.
That's my favorite bunker. It's battery 216. It's got like
Okay.
the two circles on each side, right? Those are
Yeah.
the 6-inch gun, like the
Yes.
turrets or something they would turn. But
Yeah.
that bunker has a huge hole in the floor in the middle of the hallway, and it goes down like 4 stories. Because I crossed over it as a kid. Oh, we were so stupid. We'd fallen there, we would have been dead. But it was like a Goonies adventure, and we crawled up out the other side. But that's the one you're talking about, and that's definitely one of the biggest mysteries to me out of the whole thing. Because eventually, that's going to come out into the clip. The weather is
Right.
that's going to fall into the ocean at some point in the near future. So I'll
Yeah.
finally get to see what's down there.
Well, the complex that are above ground and the complexes that are below ground that we know of, at least in a legitimate fashion, leftover relics from World War II and so forth. These, I mean, you got to keep in mind how much property this base spans. So, it's a very good possibility that the underground levels that were used in the Montauk project, I mean, for all we know, these start going down and then they jut off 90 degrees towards inland. You know what I mean? And what's
Yeah.
over here, right at the tip, is a lot of those underground military ways, again, in way of World War II and some of the other wars that came before it in way of its
Yeah.
participation. So, I mean, who knows? We could be seeing the deterioration of just one particular facade, and
Mhm.
everything else that's, needs to be hidden will very well be tucked away deep within the earth, a little bit further in.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, Brookhaven Labs was formerly Camp Upton, and there's so much shit underground there. And
Yeah.
again, like we know about it, but like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, you know what I mean? There's only so you can know about things, but what can you really find out about it?
Yeah.
Nothing. There's really nothing you could figure out about it. Like, there's armed guards at the gates. You know what I mean? Still
Yeah.
to this day. For a laboratory, why do you need machine guns at the gate? There's something more to it. Like,
Much
they
more.
do have things of value in there, of course, but you have little kids going on field trips in select areas, and then you got crazy shit going on in the other. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of, and that's like 5 miles from my house. You know what I mean? So like,
Yep.
the weird is surrounding us. On this island, like it's everywhere. At
Indeed.
least in this county. I mean, I don't know shit about Nassau. I only know so. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's hard to say, but I really don't know much about Nassau. I
Me
don't.
neither.
I really don't know what goes on in the next county. Like I don't. So
Yeah, me neither. I know the I know this area because it seems like there's more stuff out here, which makes sense. You're gonna not put it in a total suburban area. You want to go a little east where it's a little more rural.
yeah.
More,
Well, Nassau more I think wants to be more like Queens and Brook. You know what I mean? Like it's a little
yeah,
more like like the people are more on top of each other. There's
yeah,
less woods. There's more. There's
yeah,
more condensed. Like if there's a place they'll throw something in it, like they'll build something there. Like it's more. It's more similar to like you know the,
exactly.
the city life. They want to, you know what I mean? It's a little different type of feel, even though it's still Long Island, but it's broken down in the middle into two counties that are pretty much completely different.
Exactly.
Not everywhere. I'm not saying, towards the shores, of course, like it's different, but
Yeah. And a lot of military stuff out east too, even on the islands between Montauk and like Block Island and Fisher's Island and Gardner's Island and all
yeah,
those islands out there. They had some really old forts. I think it's just a good place for all this military stuff at the time.
Yeah.
But with Montauk, you were saying the tunnels. I mean, it could go back. There's rumors of natural caves, and then people using them for prohibition. The natives may have used them under their fort, and then you have like the colonists in the Revolutionary War stuff. They may have had some cannonball forts with bricks, mortar, and a lot of that stuff doesn't get written down. There are records of cannons and all kinds of stuff going on, and every single person that came along probably tried to use different structures and built tunnels. So there's a whole mess of different stuff going on under there. Who knows if they're connected or they took old ones and built onto them, but that's the mystery we're all trying to figure out. I mean, in looking into Montauk, everybody wants to know what's underground. So I'm trying to go backwards and see where things couldn't be. So like rule out that this can't be there. So try to, one day we'll figure it out and try to map it out. But I mean, like you said, what are we going to do about it? We can't really go down there. Some of the stuff's collapsing. And if you like, rats and snakes and flooded tunnels, that's one thing. But there are urban explorer people that would love to do that. And, that's what we used to do. But nowadays it's more, I think I'm too old for that. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'd still jump in some of those things.
Yeah. I mean, but going back to Camp Hero, even like everybody, everybody that hears about it, that's like an explorer wants to go there, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like how like the Amityville house is out here, like everyone wants to go to that, like, you know what I mean? Like right away, like it's like an intrigue. So a lot of people flock to that place, like, and there's videos on Camp Hero and people walking around, but really they do the same fucking thing. They go, you know what I mean? They get out, they go to the bluffs, and they go and they literally follow the cues.
Yeah.
As soon as you go off that, you know what I mean? As soon as you go off track of what they want, and they really, if you notice, they keep you, they subliminally keep you in check right at the gate. They hand you a map and a pamphlet that says USOs. It tells you 10 times in a row that there's unexploded ordnance around.
Yeah.
Which the normal person automatically says, well, shit, I'm staying on trail, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to go venture off if you think your foot's going to blow off. You know what I mean? Like, it's just common sense, right? But then you got the guys like us who are like, fuck that. Like, I see through your bullshit. And like, and then you go out there. You know what I mean? And, and those are the ones I'm interested in. And that's Brian, honestly, like even way. So I always keep saying this, but like Camp Hero was only made a public park, and it's literally the only park in the US, I believe, that's a public park with off limits areas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how do you have a public park that has private sector? It doesn't make much sense. But anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah.
But it's only been made public for what? I don't know, 10 years maybe?
Yeah, I think they opened it up in 2003. So
Okay,
see,
so almost
17.
20. So,
Almost 20.
but
Yeah.
you were going there years, a couple of, a decade or two before that. And you have film from the 90s. You know what I mean? So that was prior to, people having access to that place, or we're supposed to. So I always think that's cool footage. And it's like, it's fun because you're like running and gunning and like, like ducking and shit. And like,
Yep.
Now a car drives by and you could look them in the face. Like back then you had to like duck. You couldn't even look. You had to duck you had to assume everybody was somebody,
Yep.
It's cool.
Park far away and sneak the whole way there. You hear a car, you run in the bush. And that's it. I think we were going during the toxic cleanup too. So there was a lot of extra. That's where I think the helicopters came in, and because the Army Corps was there at the time. So who knows? But good stuff, man. Thank you. I'm glad that stuff made it.
That's Junior, Eric. Yes, that's supposed Junior.
No,
I still have some stuff to go through and show you guys too. If I wanted to wait till after this to kind of expand on Junior a little bit because I don't really have enough information on it. But that's kind of how I get down. I kind of go out. Yeah.
I was going to say, let's keep this in mind too. Junior, although it looks like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, is actually the concentration of somebody's subconscious negative energy. So this was the image, apparently, that Duncan thought was the scariest thing that his subconscious could come up with. It just happens to look like a Sasquatch. Now, is there some sort of similarity or at least connection with what we understand as Bigfoot and Junior? Possibly,
Mhm.
but to me, that would be right within the interdimensional existence of this particular creature. And yet, one of the things I think I asked Peter on the first time that I interviewed him was that once Duncan passes away, wouldn't Junior go with him? Obviously, being a creation of his uh,
Ah,
core energy, and it came back as not necessarily, not
Yeah.
good question.
necessarily. So.
I get a feel I get a feeling like he's already repurposed himself. Like I get a feel like he's already repurposed himself for quite a while now. But I don't necessarily know what as if there's anything in particular. But I just feel like he kind of changed gears from what it was.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Yeah, like
Absolutely.
I can't. I have no physical proof of that, but
I've
it's
never
just
heard that, and that makes a lot of sense. That's a good thought.
yeah.
Well, people are still seeing him, and it's not just, one or
Yeah,
two. I mean, there are people who walk through and get a glimpse of this still on the ground.
I
It,
saw
it stands to
something.
reason that he might still be there.
Joe Lafreno had saw something run across his path too. It's just like I did. All these years I never saw anything, but that one recently went and I saw something run across the road really fast, really tall, dark shape. So I just kind of chalked it up to one of those things. But then when I heard him say that, I started thinking about it. I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting because he works there every day, so he's bound
Hmm.
to see it.
Oh,
And
Joe, yeah,
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 he's a good person to ask about that.
sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
Scotty B says, "Is there barracks there?" Yes.
Yep.
The video where they'll put out footage too. They were on a separate area doing something separate. Um, when I was filming that building, that where that orb came down and stuff, that was the barracks area. It's considered
Yep.
downtown Camp Hero. Um, it was made to look like a fishing village from above, so that if the fighter pilots came over or whatever, they wouldn't think to hit it. They would just fly over it and they wouldn't think to hit it, and then they would just pull out the freaking cannons and blast them down. But initially they wouldn't just be under attack. It would just look like a small fishing village. I mean, you guys can expand on that too, because that's about as far as I know. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And those are the Air Force barracks, the ones that you're right about that. And when the Army was there in World War II, their barracks were a bunch of houses, two-story houses. So that downtown Camp Hero had like 13 of those houses there. One of them being the LSD house. So the upstairs, had the different wallpaper and paintings on every room, and that was the commander's house. So nobody else would be allowed in there without his permission. But yeah, they were just indescript houses, like you said, a fishing village, and those are all gone. I think I have footage of going through a bunch of them, and all of them had clean walls too, like white, cream colored walls or something. Not a drop of paint or wallpaper on any of them, except for that one house. That was the LSD house. But those were the original barracks, and then you have the one that you filmed, which is still there, thank God. Even those look like they're falling apart, though.
Yeah. You know what's weird? You said you put something on the back wall, like you drew a UFO, and they painted over everything except that, which is pretty
Yeah,
interesting. I mean, and
that is.
it's a small story on a grand scale of things you've done there, but it's just funny. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a.
Daily Dan, yes, it was called the Montauk Monster, or that's what it was deemed as by the media, but rightfully so. Um, uh, as guys who have been there and filmed the bluffs and filmed down there, and I mean, from one of the first things I showed DHP was some photos that I don't really share with a lot of people when we met, but we broke Camp Hero came about, and I was like, look at these weird fucking things I found, and the photographs of the beings that are there are not normal, and even Brian has come to me and said, look at this underground cave
Yeah.
type thing that was on the beach. And, I said,
Hmm.
right away, I was like, ding, 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 ding. Like it was fucking, there
Yeah.
was some weird shit down there.
Yes.
Everyone wants to say it came from Plum Island and it was some project. And it could have been. It could have been some lab experiment from Plum Island that, swam over there and died. I don't know. Uh, you know,
There have been 3 of those found, by the
yeah.
way, not just on the shore on Montauk, but in the surrounding areas. 3
Yeah.
of the same carcasses found look
Mhm.
just like that. So if it is just a one-off raccoon, if it is just a one-off fox or something like this, It doesn't explain why, we've seen 3 of these.
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
thing has a beak. If you look at it, it has a beak. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
got
Hmm.
it has a beak on it. Like it's
That
it,
is
I don't
true.
know. Like I'm I'm quick to say like, oh, it could have been some kind of decay or whatever. And then I looked at it more. I'm like, this thing's fucked up. Like it wouldn't have that much conversation if it was just something like that. Still,
Exactly.
Right.
someone
Nobody's
someone
identified it. Somebody
yeah
came and took it away, and each circumstance, there's a lot to be said for that.
It's even weird that the remnants disappeared from somebody's yard, you know? Like somebody took whoever took it off the beach, then they said somebody else stole it out of their yard or something. I mean, without it going viral that quick, why would somebody want to go and snatch it right away from them, you know?
yeah.
It's not the kind of thing you'd like go after and try to
No,
get.
not
Well,
really, man.
I mean, we know how heavily patrolled that area is, whether it's visible. Whether it's visible to the naked eye or not, it's heavily patrolled. Like
Definitely.
Hmm.
I mean, the whole island is. You know what I mean? Like there's everywhere I go, there's Black Hawk helicopters. Like I couldn't tell you why. You know what I mean? Like I can't just say, oh, they're following me. I just document all of them, and there's a lot of documented Blackhawks and helicopters around where I am. But and I don't recall that happening before I started putting out Bigfoot in public. But I can't necessarily say I can't prove it. I can't pull them down here and talk to them, and you know what I mean. Interview them, and so I really could just speculate. But they're everywhere. They're all over the place. Like so, there's got to be good reason why they're just buzzing around. Uh, that no, but as a military man, they do not do flight maneuvers on the regular like that. It's too expensive. They don't just fly every single day. And these are National Guard or reserve bases on this island. It's not like it's a main base, so they don't have
Yeah.
that kind of funding to just fly every single day for no good reason. So there's got to be
Hmm.
some more to it. Some kind of funding where they're able to fly around all day every day. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's
It's
sound.
strange how they go one after another too. Like you caught some of those videos, they're in line, just keep coming, you know. That
Well,
was
the last pair that came over the house were modified.
Hmm.
They were different. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen Blackhawks hundreds of times in combat. These, and I've seen them over my house 100 times. But these were different. They had like these like weird big white shells over the top of them, like almost like
Hmm.
they had like attachments on the bottom and stuff. And
Wow.
sometimes they'll fly around and like look for like grow gardens and shit like that, and like like people's weird sheds like with a skylight. Now they're growing pot or whatever. Like, but at this point, it's legal, in New York, and
Yeah.
you gotta just wonder what the fuck they're doing. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Definitely. Good to keep your eye on the sky for sure.
yeah, if you're not looking up, you're not looking out.
For ufology, that'd be Rich Giordano from GoofOn.
uh, yes,
Guys, go check
Coraline,
him out.
they are supposed to be military, but uh I don't know who's flying these things because they don't have no numbers on them. They're not, they don't have any markings on them, so it's hard to say. But they should be military, yeah.
We got like this Huey too. I don't know if you could see it, but there's like an older Army helicopter, the Huey, and that thing used to fly over, and we stopped and took a picture of that, and it was all black, and it's out of service, so like who the heck are flying these old helicopters that were over the base? It's another weird thing, but you see all kinds of strange stuff there. I mean, as you see, the planes, they just keep coming by, like back and forth over there. So
Yep.
when we were
Even though it's
there,
been
yeah,
decommissioned, it's still a military base. And, this has been mentioned many times before that the state owns the park above ground. Everything below
yeah,
ground is still owned by the federal government. So
Right,
that implies there is something there to be owned. And
right.
if you can't excavate or dig, in any legal way, then of course we want to know what they're hiding. I mean,
Now,
especially if this is, a relic park.
well, yeah,
yeah,
Brian did that next level thing and found the deed for the areas and shit. And
yeah,
even the people who bought land around there, they were told they don't own what's under their house. Like, who buys a house? When you
yeah,
buy a house, there's usually no amendment in there or whatever it's called that says you don't own what's under your ground, under your house. Like, like it's weird. It's some weird shit.
Well, there were
Montauk
plenty of
monster.
there were
Montauk
plenty
monster.
of houses throughout the residential areas up by Camp Hero there, where the soldiers, had been staying and so forth. Peter had brought us up that way, and he pointed out a couple places that are rumored to have entrances to the underground from those particular residential areas
Yeah.
or locations. So I think that's very interesting. Somebody knows. Somebody knows the truth, whether it's been cemented up, whether it's been covered up in some other way. There's somebody who knows what existed there at that time. It's just a matter of how quickly can we grab the memories before they fade into eternity, along with the people that are, so rapidly aging at this point. I mean, this is a very old story, but yet we're here in 2021 talking about Camp Hero and the Montauk Project still, almost 40 years later.
Yeah.
So
Boy.
very curious.
Well, now let's Oh shit! Hang on, I'm echoing again. All right, so let's let's expand a little bit because like now we're on Long Island. We're over here. We're on the east end of Long Island, on the side of New York, a little ways away from everybody. Now, deeper in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, right? Wasn't there a project there too?
There was another Sage radar there, I know, but I've heard that they had at similar Sage sites that there were projects, but I wasn't exactly sure. I almost remember the name of the Pennsylvania site, but it's kind of
What
slipped in my mind.
wasn't there a project in Pennsylvania, DHP or something like that?
Are you referring to the Philadelphia experiment?
Maybe that's it. I thought it
That
was.
was just
I thought it was directly connected. I thought there was something over there directly connected to the Montauk project.
Oh yeah, that's it.
nothing
It
that
is.
comes to mind. I mean, Brian, are you aware of? So I think you were sort of reaching for that a moment ago. We know
I
that there are a lot of branches to this, and it goes all over the planet, but locations are a little bit more muddled.
Okay. All right. I might have tied in something that wasn't meant to be tied in, so I apologize.
No,
no,
no, no. The
that's right.
Philadelphia experiment. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying it. I don't remember either exactly, but I know like San Francisco's Sage Radar, they supposedly had like a sister project. I think
Yeah.
Montauk always is the first of everything, but
Mhm.
there, like you said, there was a Sage Radar in Pennsylvania, so it could be something somebody else told you that. I think I read about something like that years ago.
It sounds
So
familiar.
double check, I will.
Sounds
Yeah.
familiar. But no,
Definitely.
I mean the whole way the Philadelphia experiment oddly fits into the story, as if the Montauk wasn't fantastic enough as it is, or even Philadelphia experiment as a standalone story. The connection is that when they fired on the generators in 1943 and they tried to connect, well, they were messing around with degaussing equipment. So that's what the generators were supposedly powering, was this degaussing equipment. Now, did it extend beyond that? Maybe they were playing with something in the way of pseudoscience or peripheral sciences, and you know this accident occurred wherein they created an electromagnetic field that expanded and took up the whole ship and everything inside and shifted it into a completely different point. Now, yes, you can talk about time and stuff because there is a connection between 40 years
Hmm.
and that particular project. In fact, the way that they shut off the Montauk project was to go back in time 40 years prior to when they were doing the Philadelphia experiment, where they had to then cut off the generators from there so that there wasn't this energetic loop that was mixed up with time and space that was continuing to feed what was happening in 1983 versus what was happening in 1943. So it's very relevant to talk about this because it's technically the beginning. In fact, I find that along the research, especially, you'll see that the Montauk project, the later end of what they were doing, Phoenix 2, Phoenix 3, especially, was trying to right the problems that they made with the Philadelphia experiment. And again, that led to all sorts of different implications in way of manipulating time and space and who was going through these portals. But it's certainly there in the story. And there are people who have said, they've stepped in these portals, and there have been people who've been pushed into them, people lost in them. I'm not hearing from the people who've been lost in them, of course, but there's stories saying that there were X number of folks prior to me or after me that went that route. And it was all just experimental. Empirical is the word that we often hear associated with this project.
Mm.
Absolutely crazy.
That's one of the main reasons we went to on that day, August 12th.
Yes.
It's like it links the Philadelphia experiment with the end, the alpha and the omega of the main story, the destruction of the base, and it was all in this 20-year biorhythm, and there's a lot more to read about that, of course, but it was a good time for us to go and trying to pick up as much info as we could and tie all these things together. I mean, it's a perfect time to go.
I don't doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, just making connections. That's
So you
all
guys
about.
met up with Peter Moon at some point too, right? Like, I mean, what
Yeah.
just, I mean, you don't have to get into what the day was like because I know it went kind of left, but as far as what you guys expected,
Yeah.
but like, what was he like? You know what I mean? Like, he's
Yeah.
he's a big name, as far as when you think about, when you think about the Montauk project.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to go first?
Sure. Peter Moon is as close to the guys that blew this whistle so many years ago that you can get to now. Everybody else has died, and unfortunately, we've lost a lot of great minds in connection to the telling of this story when it deals with Montauk. So it was good to get to meet Peter Moon face to face. When I did interview him, it was more of a radio interview. I didn't see him on video or anything, but I spoke to him at length during the show, of course, and after the show on personal levels. So it was nice to put the face to the voice. Once again, it's been so many years since I've even seen him do anything publicly in the way of a lecture or something like that. He was much younger, so obviously he's advanced in age as everybody gets to that point. He's very nice. He's one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. And I mean, this guy will bend over backwards, give you the shoes off of his feet to try to make sure that you feel comfortable and that things are okay with you. I mean, the altruistic nature of this guy blew me away. Now, I've met some very warm people, and, yet this still kind of made me kind of step back and say, oh my God, this is just incredible. So that was my first impression of Peter, and I thought he was very knowledgeable, even in the way of the history of the area. Of course, he is technically a peripheral when it comes to the Montauk project, as much as he's responsible for sharing that with the world and penning it with Preston. He was not directly involved, but he knows a lot of people, obviously, who were. And he's met a lot of folks along the way. And this is, I mean, we're not even really touching upon the most relevant work that Peter's done in the last 20, 30 years. I mean, Montauk kind of, for me, started my engagement with Peter Moon and knowing who he was and following his work. But, this was some years ago, and he's done a lot more in the way of expanding upon the area that is Montauk, purported underground pyramids that may be there, and how he connects Montauk with Transylvania in so many different ways, especially in the way of these archaeological discoveries dealing with pyramids and so forth. So,
Well,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny to mention because I just kind of started to uncover like the I know that there was pyramids around the world and that they're kind of like hidden and like they were kind of like decimated to an extent, and like I never really thought about it, but I started to realize Nikola Tesla spoke about it quite a bit, you know what I mean, and how powerful and naturally amazing they were, but how they were basically free electricity, you know what I mean, like, so
Yeah.
imagine what if they had underground pyramids. They probably knew how to source a lot of that energy to whatever they were doing down there, you know what I mean? Because I mean, if they kept pyramids like they did back in the day, we wouldn't have electric companies. We wouldn't have to pay for electric. We wouldn't be so dependent on shit like this. You know what I mean? That there was naturally ways to power everything, like So
Exactly. So rocket.
That's pretty amazing that he figured that stuff out.
He showed us a spot too, Peter Moon, about where he thinks there's a pyramid in Montauk, and it's called Montauk Mountain. It's like a nature preserve on top of it, so might be someplace we should definitely check out. Trails, and supposedly under this giant mountain of dirt, there's a stone pyramid under there.
Wow.
I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but definitely got to look more into that because I have never even heard of that. After all,
wish we get some LiDAR up there, LiDAR scanning. That would be one heck of a place to shoot into the ground and see what we could get. If you see the structure under there, it'd be clear as day. I would figure something that large, occupying that space. So
exactly. Something even on all sides, maybe, and we'll find it. We'll try.
And that was near a naval base, right? Or submarine
It's
base,
near
I
the
believe.
the naval base, which is a submarine base, and it was a torpedo testing facility. But when you look into history, like he said, like Peter Moon mentioned to us when we were out there, he said, everybody out here knows it's no secret this was a submarine base. I've seen the
Hmm.
pens myself, but when you look it up online or something, you keep getting the torpedo base. It's very hard to find the mention of the submarine base there. But it's one of those things they try to kind of take out of history. But where
Sure.
we went was, I found entrances that underwater that look like they go into an underwater, like a tube or a pipe, and they're there in several different years of Google Earth. And I took screenshots. I'll have to put them together and share them and make a video out of it so you can see. But basically, it would go in further than just that parking lot. So the place he took us was further back from the parking lot. It's this town landfill, and it's a giant mound. And I was checking that out previously. That would make sense to pull in there. They have like a dry dock. They cut like the water from the outside off and an airlock. There's different ways. Like I was trying to figure out how it works mechanically, but where he took us is a very possible that's where the submarine base ends. They would come in where we went at the actual base, but they would go further underground and I guess undock, at this inside this giant mound that we found. So that
Wow.
was very interesting to see, and he
Uh,
had inside info from everybody he was telling us about.
yeah, it's
So
pretty
it's
impressive.
fascinating. Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
fascinating.
I mean, I think I heard it from you, Brian, that there might be tunnels all the way up to, the manor up there and stuff. And
Definitely tunnels.
my buddy that just bought the restaurant in there. Hopefully, maybe he can help us one time.
That would be awesome.
Oh,
Get
that would
down
be
in the
fantastic.
basement. Get down in the basement because I mean, he's been nothing but hospitable to me over the years. So
Yeah,
I don't see why he wouldn't. If
cool.
we go off peak, obviously
Sure.
we'd have to go off peak season. But I really don't see why he wouldn't allow us to, bang around down in the basement a little bit at least.
Yeah.
Hmm. That
So
would be awesome.
it'd be kind of interesting. I never knew there was any, but he, not that I only never knew that anything was down there, but he only just bought that restaurant, the second restaurant about a year ago. So
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
yeah, because it wasn't doing well. So whatever, that's a side story. But
Yeah.
we'll go for another like 10 minutes, guys, if you don't
Sure.
mind.
That's
Yeah.
great.
DHP, right as you said something about Peter Moon and your introduction to this. Do you mind expanding on like what? So you're not from here, like what I mean. You're not from here. You've never been to Camp Hero, like prior to this past August 12th. What was if you don't mind, I don't know if you want to
You're
talk about
fine.
it, but what was your connection to it? What was your draw to it? You know what I mean?
Long story short, I have some connection to the Montauk project itself, energetically, interdimensionally, and possibly otherwise if you want to look at it even deeper, soul connections and so forth in way of deep-rooted energy. So in this respect, without getting into too much detail at the moment, uh, I have a very strong soul connection with Preston Nichols, first and foremost. All of the guys, the key players, but certainly Preston Nichols. I don't know why this is. It's not something that I ever expected. In fact, when I learned about this project back in, oh God, late 90s, early 2000s, when I stumbled upon the Philadelphia experiment, which then of course led to Montauk, uh, something was very resonant about this experience to me, and it seemed almost familiar in a very terrifying way. Now, I held on to that for a long time and just didn't really know what to do with it. And anytime I come across this project, it was like I was sort of reliving or living whatever
Hmm.
dialogue or article that I was reading about it. It was very strange. Again, this recollection, I couldn't put my finger on it. So it got to the point where I started feeling on whatever empathic level the immensity and the guilt associated with the Montauk Boys and the project itself. And I couldn't, again, it was like actually interrupting my everyday life. I mean, I'd think about it or I'd get a flash in my head and all of a sudden, boom, the emotion was intensely on me and I couldn't shake it. So I kind of I said I have to figure out why this is because I mean, being 39 years old, the project ended in 83. I was born in 81. There's really no physical chance that I was there in any respect because I was also more cognizant. I have uh, some sort of cognizant memory that indicates to me some sort of intellectual ability to understand the environment, which again means to me whatever body I was in or whatever part I had, I was old enough to, be able to interpret the world and remember it in this way. So, yeah, again, I'm cutting a very, very long story short. It's
Sure.
not something that you want to be a part of. It's not cool to be a part of it. It's just
Mhm.
something that I found and have been dealing with in the way of healing. And that the reason I know about this, and I've gone into psychic readings about this, I'm looking into um, the transgressions and trying to do things on that end. I mean, honestly, it's a little expensive, but it will be worth it to figure out why this connection is still there. Again, the reason I've been told that I'm remembering this at all is because now is the time to heal it because it's actually held me back in certain ways, certain facets. I mean, there are characteristics that I've carried throughout my entire life. I look back on my personality and I can see reflections of certain events that may or may not have happened in the way that I remember them. But I needed to put this to rest and I needed to go out there and physically be at the location
Yeah.
and feel it and see how much would drum up for me in a personal respect. Um, and it's just, again, it's just really moved a lot of odd, latent emotion and energy that I didn't know was sitting about and now is rolling, possibly the way a bowling ball would. But,
Mhm.
we got the ball rolling and now we can talk about the healing and how to let go of these things. That's what I'm going to be framing a documentary that I'm coming out with next year is what I'm shooting for, where I'm going to be talking to some of these survivors who were there first or second hand in
Mhm.
first generation or second generation, either way you're there physically and find what at their core, yes, it was a traumatic experience, we all understand that, but now that we know, okay, what have you done with yourself, how are you able to move forward, were you able to heal, can you live this functional life, is the trauma still at the helm for you, and where do you go from whatever point you're at. So I'm looking at the very humanistic side, again, the way of healing that some of these projects have caused people to undergo.
Awesome. Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I'm
helpful.
sure. I'm sure. Like any, there's different trauma types. And as a trauma survivor, I mean different types, but PTSD with combat was one of mine, and I've been in a lot of different therapies, and uh, without getting personal or anything, like certain people have different traumas in the room. Even though we were all soldiers, some weren't combat related,
Mhm.
and the guys who had childhood traumas, I always felt had it worse because
Mm,
they didn't have no understanding. They didn't have a chance. Like I signed a paper, I went over
mm,
there consciously. I knew what I was getting into to an extent. I had nobody to blame but me. These child survivors and trauma victims are just that. They had no way around this. And can you imagine that people who went through like domestic violence and had trauma? Like imagine being pulled into these basements of these bases, this base and this place and these experiments and then like now
yeah,
they're existing in this world,
yeah,
and a majority of people wouldn't believe them if they told them. You
Right.
know what I
yeah.
mean? So
That's.
like that's one of the worst parts. It's not even like
Hmm.
it would be a widespread type like you how people
Yeah,
probably ask them all the time like, hey, are you okay, like something like they don't even know what to say or talk about.
yeah,
So I think it's a really awesome thing that you're doing with that.
yeah. That's a
Really
that's
Well,
a
thank
awesome.
you.
noble
It's
thing. Yeah.
it's certainly the highlight that needs to come next. It needs to be the narrative moving forward. We've covered so many negative aspects about this project and we understand the damage that's
Yeah.
been done, but what are we doing with the collateral? Are we just going to sit and
Sure.
gawk at it and continue
Yeah.
to stand in awe of what happened, oh my god, or are we going to take action and start healing ourselves from this shit? Because this is just one example. Yes, it was a very far reaching example, the Montauk project, but you look at stuff like MK Ultra, even to talk about some of these other projects that have happened and have been acknowledged. by our governments that they did do these things. There was a lot of trauma based in that too, and you didn't see most of that even when they came out and said we did XYZ. They didn't talk about the satanic element to this or the ritual element to this and how they were taking young children. I mean, this is the most horrific thing that you can do, at least in my thoughts here in the universe. I can't think of anything more horrible than what these people were doing to, children in these black projects.
It's like Montauk magnifies everything, it seems. Like, so you doing that, I mean, think about it, like you're trying to heal. Like Montauk's like the Moldavite of I don't know, emotion, paranormal. But if you were to, maybe you could be used for good, to magnify good is what I'm saying. Just the
Sure.
same way that it was to
Yeah.
magnify negative. Maybe you can
100%. Well,
keep it like,
like when you have a trauma like that, like, and especially something so isolated, like who do you turn to? And really they only have like the people involved only, or people who know about it only have each other to turn to. And when it's something like that, you don't really speak about it, or you don't even know where to
yeah,
find the other individuals. So like the fact that you're
exactly.
going to bring people together, or at least, or at least separately,
Yeah.
talk them through it, and maybe like it shows that somebody cares. It shows that somebody's listening, and that sometimes even if it gets you through the day, and when you're dealing with trauma and shit like that, like it's worth it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
like you said, bringing a healing light to it. There's only one way to do that, and that's to go right fucking through it.
Mhm.
uh, Unfortunately, that's the only way to heal from it, is to go right through it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, it sucks. There was different traumas I had to go through to get through individual events. So like I had to like pick like individual events that were the worst, and the ones that really affected me, which most times were the ones that had flashbacks from, that would make me lose time and space. I would literally, like, something would pop, or I'd
Yeah.
I could drive down the road 3 miles and not know how I got there, because or like I'd
Yeah.
see something,
Hmm.
and like literally, like the surrounding area was not what I was, I was seeing, Afghanistan. That's not where I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's things like that. But I had to do different types. I wish I can't remember what they were called. One was called like CPT, which was like some kind of cognitive whatever treatment or whatever. But you,
Mhm.
you literally wrote down, and as far as you could get, and like you kind of, you read it out loud to yourself, and another one I had to do was like I would speak it like I was there, and I would listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over. And it sounds like, that's like not a good thing to do, but it is. It's kind of like you're reliving, and then you're consciously coming back to and realizing that you're not there, and you're
Mhm.
in a safe place and stuff. And and as hard as it was, like that was the way to do it, was to go through it and to realize that it was a
Yeah.
past thing, and that you're okay and you're not there anymore. And that
Yep.
something like that these Montauk boys went through, like I wouldn't blame them if they never trusted another soul on earth. You know what I mean?
Sure.
From a young age, they were snatched up and done dirty. And that's that it's not gonna be an easy task, bro, and I commend you for that. I really do. Really commend.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man. I thank you. It's a matter of recognizing and then breaking through the programming too, because a lot of these survivors, and less than 1% survived, they are still dealing with certain programming that's so deep seated. I mean, without mentioning any names, some of the more prominent ones that are out there have either taken that programming by the reins and done their best to dismantle it and are still doing things to dismantle the programming, or they're not even aware of it. And if you sit with them long enough, you may recognize some of that. It's unraveling this steel ball of yarn, if you will.
Yeah,
It's really difficult to
Yeah.
get through, but it may take a lifetime, to
sure.
heal. But the fact that they're still alive, the majority of the survivors that I've spoken to personally are beyond grateful and recognize the miracle that it is that they're still here and able to talk about something like this at any capacity, because most of them
Yeah.
have been quiet for years. They struggled with this internally, as you can very well imagine. And oddly enough, it doesn't make it any easier, because they were existing on different timelines within the
Sure.
same space. And now they're
Mm.
trying to recollect this and saying, well, I don't understand. I remember sitting in school eating my lunch, and at the very same time, I'm being strapped to a chair, beaten, to a near point of dying here. I have
Hmm.
two simultaneous memories that run over themselves. And
Mm.
of course, if you haven't experienced this for yourself, it's very difficult to describe, and especially, excuse me, for someone who doesn't have maybe the esoteric language needed to try to express something like that because they just happen to be an experiencer that went through it. It's and of course at a very young age where you don't really have explanation for certain experiences, you just experience it. You
Mm.
think back and call it something, but at the time it was what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't really compare it, but that's the only thing I have comparable to is what is like I'm a soldier that went through PTSD, had PTSD or has PTSD, and we had a VA hospital. But even
Hmm.
still, we don't want to go there. Like we don't want to address it because it was so traumatic. You kind of want to bury it any way you can. Whether that's with addiction, whether that's with isolation, whether whatever tool you use.
Yeah.
But really you're not operating in society as you should. And these kids didn't have a VA hospital. They don't have a VA hospital. They don't have anywhere to
Yeah.
go, anywhere to turn to.
Yeah.
And especially with a thing, an events or a time that technically never happened. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it's being buried under the rug and saying, that wasn't going on. So like they have nowhere to turn. So uh no, it's pretty amazing stuff. But like you said, there was like simultaneous timelines. That's got to be hard to wrap your head around. It
It's
really does.
tough. It's
Yeah.
so difficult. And again, it's even more difficult for the people who try to express that sort of experience, not having any real grounding in how to talk about that. I mean, we don't have the
Mhm.
language to talk about, existing in
Right.
two timelines simultaneously. I mean, as far as
Yeah.
anybody knows, this is really just theoretical. And yet these people have lived this and they have memories of going through it. I
Sure.
mean, believe me, they
Hmm.
wouldn't, if they had the opportunity, they wouldn't want to remember some of this stuff. We would
Sure.
want to just let it go, but it keeps resurfacing, and names and faces get in the mix here. And of course, there's this whole lineage that's attached that we can talk about at another time, dealing with the name Cameron, Parsons,
Hmm.
and so many others that
Yeah.
are all intertwined here, and lead right back to that project.
No doubt.
Definitely. It's like you said, what you're going to do though is going to add like some positive light to the seesaw of, it's been weighed down with this negative, the whole story. So we need to add a little more, like what you're going to do is going to bring a little more positivity back and show other people how to do it too. You may
Hmm.
be teaching something that they can teach themselves and heal themselves with once we go through it and you figure it out along the way. It's just a
At the
good thing in
very
general.
least,
The place
it
could
very
use a little light.
Yeah.
well.
So
I mean, at the very least, people ought to know that this is something possible to overcome. I mean, the experience is what it is. It's now physically, for most, it's over. There are some that are still being taken and used in this way because there were so many
mhm.
offshoots in Wave sister programs that
Yeah.
developed from the Montauk project. So there's a good chance that the majority of people in one way or another have been targeted, for some of this programming. If it wasn't physically being taken to a location, they can do it through, the air, so to say.
Yeah.
Put it
Right.
simply, they can do it through your television, they can do it through your media devices,
Sure.
and all you have to do is have it on you,
Yeah.
just being in the field. But Larry Hart asks how many are still alive from the Montauk project. Honestly, it's a very difficult question to answer because we're not necessarily aware of who might still be left around. By and large, a majority of these people do not want to talk about it. You'll find that they were either there or that there was some sort of association, and it's seriously something that they will not speak about, publicly or personally. And some of them get offended if this is sort of brought up in any sort of conversation. It's a defense mechanism to deal with the trauma. I understand and I completely respect their decision not to speak on it. But that being said, it's very difficult to ascertain an exact number
Yes.
of who might actually still be around. I can name a handful for you, but these are people who are out in the public eye, not always necessarily talking about Montauk, but again, there are certain people who have taken this a different direction and learned how to turn it into a healing experience in life now, having already experienced the worst of what the worst is. in life. So
That's a good thing.
Yeah. All right, guys.
fantastic. All right.
Excellent.
Well, I thank you
Well,
both for being here. I'm sure I'll talk to you
thank
guys
you, man.
Oh, thank you,
afterward.
man.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you guys are a wealth of information, and I really, guys, please go subscribe to their channels. Montauk is Strange. Brian is at the base level of his channel. He's putting out a lot of material, but he's just getting started, getting at the ground level. A lot of you guys are on DHP already, but if you're not, go check it out. There's alternate material going on. It's going to keep coming out. I'm pretty much maxed out. I put out all mine, so you guys know how I get it. There's no beauty involved to it. It's just raw. But those will be more well done. And definitely check them out. So glad I
Thank
came
you, mister.
across this today. So interesting. Well, we're glad to have you guys. So every last one of you,
Very
thank.
much.
There
Yes.
it is. Yes, true story. Thank you, moderators, for being here. Scotty
Thank you. Thank you.
B, Sarah, my lovely wife, Jimbo, Sean, Patterson. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We have a great group, and I know, we don't really have any problems here, but, thank you guys for hanging out. And yes, the links are in the description down below.
Thank
Uh, I
You
have a
guys
great,
will enjoy
Thanks.
what comes next. Trust me, we're just getting started here. Just
very
getting
true,
started.
Indeed.
very true. So, all right, guys, I'll catch up with you guys, whatever, in chat after, and because I
Sounds
don't know
great.
I don't know how to end this and
Me neither.
talk in the back, so I have no idea. So I'll catch up with you guys after.
Sounds good.
Okay, guys.
Thank you again.
Have
All
a good
right,
night and
gentlemen.
thank you
everybody.
both. Cheers.
Thank
Take care. Cheers.
Ciao.
Oh, Mike. All right.
Take care.
Let's see. All right, guys. Well, yeah, I know I need help. I know, Scotty. I need a lot of help. Thanks, man. They are awesome guys, as you could see. Like that. There's really go subscribe to their channels. You won't regret it. DHP does a lot of live streams. Brian's put out a lot of videos from the 90s. He's gonna keep putting out videos. We're gonna do some more stuff together. We're gonna do. I don't really want to go out at night too much, so I'm gonna utilize like Rob and probably Larry in the future, and Brian and do some more night stuff because I really don't want to be out in the. If I go out in the brush by myself at night, I'm not gonna last very long without psyching myself out. So we're gonna start partnering up, being that there's some good fellas out here that want to get out in the brush. So there'll be he'll have side by side footage too of that. So I appreciate every last one of you. I appreciate you guys, your questions. Being not that this is ever an issue, but everyone was so respectful and awesome. Like you guys are the best. You make this shit so easy. Like I go with other channels and I see like trouble and drama and bullshit. And you guys make this shit so much fun and so easy. I really, really appreciate every last one of you. There he is. So go check him out. DHP out. Yeah, it makes it a little easier. Uh, I like even at Bubba's, I kind of rushed out of there. So yes, Brian's stuff is really good. Yes. All right, guys. As always, thank you, thank you, thank you. We ran quite a while. I got to get up in the house, have some dinner time. Talk to you guys soon. Have a blessed day.